What's up everyone? Today marks our first devlog of Artisan Story. For those who doesn't know it yet, Artisan Story is a new fantasy farming sim where you can be a fantasy artisan. To sum it up, Artisan Story is an alchemist farming sim with a side of monster ranching. We released a trailer just a while ago, and if you want to check it out, I put it on the corner of the screen and on the description button down below. Okay, so in our first devlog, I think it's best if we talk about what the game is about, and to do that, I decided to split the categories into three main things. First, what is Artisan? Second, the monster taming part. And three, the important question, what is story? I'm sorry, I'm just joking. But not really entirely, because in number 3 I wanted to talk about the story part of Artisan's story. And before we start, please bear with me. We try to integrate a lot of parts into one another, so you can't really separate these 3 points completely. I apologize if I jump around during my explanation to make it easier for you. Now, with that over, let's start with the number 1. The main idea of Artisan's story is that we want to make a simulation game where you can experience living in another world, a fantasy world. But speaking as a fantasy fan that is now reaching the working age, I have to say that the thought of living in a world with a real job while taking it easy sounds more appealing to me than the idea of trying to fight the source of all evil. I mean, I still want to pick up a sword and cast magics, but let's just say that I just wanted to pass into the fantasy world without the sense of urgency or the threat of calamity looming on the corner. And that spawns another question. What kind of job lets you feel the true essence of fantasy? Aside from monster battling, of course. And frankly, there are a lot of things that come to mind. We got alchemists making potions and working with fantasy plants feels really nice and cozy, right? Or a blacksmith making swords and armor sounds really cool. But can alchemists be a blacksmith and a blacksmith be an alchemist? It is a little confusing, right? So somehow we managed to make it more confusing by generalizing it as artisans. I mean, it both include making stuff, right? Processing fantasy materials, turning it into more useful items. So I really like the sound of artisans. So artisans are just a generalized terms for alchemists in this game. Think of it as the Atelier series, where you can collect recipes, farm materials, and create a ton of items to help you grow as an artisan. So to summarize that, our core gameplay for the artisan part will be get recipes, get materials, and craft and complete recipes. Recipes can be brought from stores and other measures, as I will explain later. But now we get to the interesting part of material gathering. Aside from foraging materials, gathering spot, fishing, etc, etc, we can of course get materials from monsters. Oh, where's the farming part, you asked? Mike has shared with you a little secret that this farming sim wasn't really a farming sim to begin with. The farming part arrives at our second problem that I want to share in the monster taming part. Now, as I said earlier, this game wasn't originally a farming sim. It was originally an alchemist RPG. But as we tried that idea, something came to mind. Wouldn't it be really annoying to go to the dungeon, fight monster and go back to craft the items and then repeating it again and again, and sometimes you forgot something so you cannot craft the item you want to make? So came along the idea of what if we bring the monster home so it can produce the materials. Maybe if we raise the monster with love, it can even give better items entirely. And boom! Artisan's story became a farming game all of a sudden. Archie and Chloe, our playable characters, you can change the name later, don't worry, also thinks the same. What if we tame the monster and bring them to our farm? The idea of a monster ranch is so entertaining to me. When talking about ranching monsters, there are a lot of things that came to mind. What if they love eating different kind of food? What if some monster likes to live in the dark? What if they live in the water? What if they like cold and snowy places? So, of course we can implement that in the game, like building habitats and managing the feeds. But don't worry about it getting too complicated too fast, because we created a system where the basic feed and barn can work normally with any type of monsters. After all, we want to accommodate casual players, while also rewarding players who are willing to do a little more. So, now that we have the ranch, where do you find the monsters to tame? There are 4 different islands in Artisan's story that you can explore. Homefort, the human settlement where our farm is. There are a lot of docile monsters in the grassland just east of the town. Dwarok, the base of the Dwarven mining colony. The caves in Dwarok has a lot of monsters that likes to live in the dark. Alfredo, the home of the long-living Alphans. The ancient forest the Alphans live in houses a lot of plants and insect-type monsters. Beniyama, where the Talferan race live. The harsh weather in the snow mountain also breed tough monsters and even rare materials. With every region being different, the biomes are different, the style of the cities are different, the villages, the monsters, the materials. We aim to make sure you can alternate your experience in Artisan's story every day. In the wild, most of the times, the monsters are somewhat docile. They try to mind their own businesses, and some are shy and even run on sight. But some species of monsters are too proud to even interact with people. They attack on sight, even try to hide and ambush you. So as a trained artisan, you need to learn how to defend yourself. Now, you might see in the trailer that we're beating up a boreal before we tame it. Before you come into any conclusion, let me explain you about our taming tool, the Lasso Gauntlet. The Lasso Gauntlet is a marvel of runic engineering that mimics the telepathic spells of the Elven race. It uses runic wires to communicate with the monsters. Think of it similar to Pokeballs, but it is exceptionally similar to Pokemon Rangers Capture Styler. You guys remember that one? You can add the target monster favorite food to increase the chance of taming the monsters. Homemade foods are usually the best options, but if you didn't prepare beforehand, you can always use stuff that you pick on the ground. But sometimes this method might fail, especially with tougher monsters. If a monster sees you as worthy for their time, they will listen to you more. And that is why we need to prove ourselves to them first. In Artisan's story, there are 2 kinds of bars that the monster have. Their health and their stamina. When you hit a monster, there are 2 kinds of damage that they will receive. If you hit the monster with something that they're weak with, for example, boreals are weak to fire elements, and orlums are weak to smash type attack, they will receive the same amount of health damage, but they will receive more stamina damage. And the same goes the opposite way if they're hit with the type of attacks that they are strong against. Now, what happens if a monster's stamina is depleted? They will go into an exhausted stage. Monsters in this stage are easier to tame, and if you attack them again, they will receive critical damage, but they will return to aggressive mode. So be sure to check out your bestiary a lot to learn about the monsters. Learn about what they like, what their attack and weaknesses, and soon enough, you'll master the art of taming monsters. Now, what happens if the monster health goes to 0? Fortunately, your guardian dragon Thea gives you an amulet of life. This amulet makes sure that the monsters you defeat are not killed, but instead refers to their younger form and is teleported somewhere. This process sometimes drops the excess material that the monster has, so you don't really have to worry about committing any form of carnage. Now, we get to the exciting parts. The people of Clover Islands. As I mentioned before, there are 4 races in Artisan's story and all of them have their own specialties. The humans are good at agriculture, the Dwarves are good at technologies, the Elven with their long lives are focusing more toward arts. And aside from being an excellent fighters, Ferens are exceptionally good at preserving food. These specialties often translates into what items they are selling in their shops, but this could also mean that they might give you an idea to make better items. I mean, life is all about learning, and learning from someone is also part of your artisan growth. So don't be shy to show your creations to others. They might even give you a quick tip. But every islands have their own cultural festivals and celebrations. There are small celebrations that they do, for example like exchanging chocolate in Homefort, contests that promotes your artisan skill, and even use event that allows you to open up shop or go on a date with one of the bachelor and bachelorettes. There are 55 villagers across all islands, and 18 of them are romanceable regardless of which of the twin that you pick in the beginning. All of them have their heart events. It's a form of character stories that you might get after reaching a certain level of friendship. I personally put a lot of time in writing all of these heart events. I mean, when you meet someone that you like, you obviously wanted to know more about them, right? We aim to make the story part of Artisan's story enjoyable. And for us, the biggest aspect of simulating a fantasy world is the people. You might find a girl who keeps stealing toys to make a boy notice her, a charming bachelor wondering if they should chase their dream or not, and even a grandpa who's afraid of leaving his little granddaughter all alone. Happy stories, sad stories, character growths. You will find it all in Artisan story. And if you marry someone and have a family, they will get extra stories like your spouse worrying about your children's future, or even your child begs you to hide them because they smash a window while playing. You can tackle the game on your own pace. You want to spend your time chilling and befriending people, joining festivals, fighting tough monsters, taking care of your farm, completing recipes, and all the things that you can expect from a fantasy farming sim. So, what are you waiting for? Let's start our own Artisan story. You can support us on Twitter and YouTube to stay tuned for the latest news, and follow our Kickstarter to be reminded if the campaign goes online. Everything can be done by clicking the link down in the descriptions. And thank you for tuning in for our first devlog, and we'll see you next time.